Hey, I'm Ray Latif. I'm here with John Craven. We're from BevNet. We're at the 2014 Natural Products Expo West Show here in sunny Anaheim, California. We sound like a broken record. Every time we say this show gets bigger and bigger, but it gets bigger and bigger. There's 65,000 people attended this year's show. They added 2 new halls. We couldn't go anywhere without someone mentioning that.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, on the beverage front, it seemed like, beverages kind of, I don't know, bounced back's the right way to describe it, but there were certainly a lot more new companies here, as well as I don't think there were really that many booths that had, didn't have anything new.
Right.
It seems like everyone's kind of in expansion mode right now, which is great.
Now, Whole Foods has played, from the people we talked to I think at least 100 or 150 different beverage exhibitors at this event, a very, very powerful role in the way that brands develop, in the way that they define their packaging, the way that they revamp, the way that they create new SKUs. And one of the biggest things that's come up at this show is the non-GMO certification that everyone's talking about. And Whole Foods is really leading the way to get all of these products, to get that stamp on their label. In some cases, telling these brands where to put the stamp on their label. We've seen some people say, "Yeah, this is great." We've seen some brands say, I'm not a big fan of it. I'm not a big fan of this, and those brands have been the organic brands. Organic brands saying, organic means non-GMO.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you see that going, and where do you see, Whole Foods' influence being limited, if at all?
Well, I mean, it would certainly be limited in any brand that sort of, has meaningful volume and sort of holds some cards
Sure.
with Whole Foods.
Honest Tea, for example.
Sure. And, if you're a startup, you probably don't hold too many cards, right?
Yeah.
So Whole Foods can tell you to do whatever they want you to do. So I think that's something that, certainly admire Whole Foods wanting to get rid of all or have only non-GMO products by I think it's 2016.
Yep.
The way that's going to happen, I don't know if it's right or wrong.
Yeah.
Putting more logos on the front of products, I think, the risk with it is that it's confusing to the consumer.
Right.
I think someone pointed out that, they're worried that non-GMO will become synonymous with organic, which it's not. On the other hand, I think it's just one more thing for a brand to use as a competitive edge against the competition. So,
Well, someone mentioned also that non-GMO and some of these other certifications differentiate Whole Foods and its products and its brands from the mainstream and other conventional retailers, which are accepting more products, which are taking more natural products in. Do you agree with that assessment?
I think that's one of those things that only time will tell. I
Yeah.
mean, Whole Foods certainly has a reputation for being, an innovator and someone who wants sort of a, unique, cutting-edge set of products. So certainly when that whole thing came out about the overlap between Whole Foods and Walmart, I mean, I think that's...
What was it, 160 brands or something like that?
I don't know if it was that many, but somewhere
Yeah.
in that ballpark. So, that's probably not good PR for Whole Foods. So.
Sure, certainly not. But Whole Foods, again, plays a really strong role in the development of some of these brands. We talked to one kombucha company that said that Whole Foods asked them to make a super drink that was made out of kombucha, HPP juice, chia, and turmeric. And this company's thinking about doing it. It's really interesting stuff.
Yeah, I think the only other thing I'd say on that is that from what I've noticed with Whole Foods exclusives and stuff like that, sometimes I think some of these brands are just enamored by this potential relationship that they might have, and totally understandable. It's their most important customer, but on the other hand, I think for some brands it's led them down the path of distraction, simply because they can't say no, or it might just be better to focus. So making, one-off things, super drinks, whatever.
Yeah.
Is that really going to sell, or is that just satisfying this need for, new products?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, in addition to some of the new products, we saw a lot of product and brand revamps. Some really good ones that stood out for us. Oatworks did a really good job with making their package pop out with those new colors. Mama Chia did a nice sort of evolution, not revolution as they call it. Clearly, kombucha had a really nice one. What do you think of that one?
Yeah, I mean, I think, kombucha products are, one in particular where the packaging has been, I don't know, kind of lackluster just across the category outside of GTs. And, I think clearly kombucha is one, they're kind of maturing a little bit, have figured out what they want to be.
Sure.
You could say the same for Health Aid. I mean, really nice packaging out of the gate. Another packaging change that I thought was really nice is Galazzo.
Yeah.
They've kind of, revamped the logo a little bit, refined the messaging, and it definitely looks like a much more polished product line.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they took the soccer ball off the front, put it on the back, so it's a little bit more universal in terms of the way it can be used and consumed and viewed by consumers in that sports category, sports and energy, actually. Harmless Harvest, actually, did the third, I think, iteration of their packaging for their tea products. What did you think of that?
Yeah, I think, the old packaging kind of popped, but it wasn't clear that it was part of the Harmless Harvest brand, which, they're clearly trying to address that now. Mm-hmm. I think it makes a lot of sense. There's certainly, some brand equity that exists in Harmless Harvest, so, definitely like that one too.
Yeah. Speaking of teas, we didn't see a lot of new tea companies at the show. We did see a ton. Well, I guess relative to past years, we saw a ton of new cold-pressed juice brands. Just on one floor, I think we saw 5. These HPP startups, HPP cold-pressed juice startups, really have taken hold of the natural community.
We're kind of at a point where, these brands are kind of moving from being, little sort of startup delivery businesses in some case to trying to go and compete on, a national level, again, at least at Whole Foods. And, I think it seems like the people who are operating these brands that are exhibiting, really have put a good foot forward.
Sure.
On the other hand, again, as we're trying to figure out, which ones we can sort of remember after all this, I think the challenge is how do you stand out?
Yeah, definitely. How do you stand out? But, I mean, we've seen the potential for some of these brands that really, they got their launch here at Expo West 2 or 3 years ago, not even in some cases. Sure. And now they have these humongous booths. I mean, like if you look at just Suja.
Sure.
Of course, Suja has a lot of financial backing behind them, but that's a brand that's grown very quickly and has been accepted by, the entire natural channel, and now is going to places like Costco.
Yeah, I mean, the landscape is like constantly changing. I mean, either through acquisitions or taste changing or different priorities from retailers. So I think that's always a question that comes up is just, hey, there's no more room, or comment that comes up, no more room for another juice brand or for this type of product. And, you can look at things like coconut water, for example, and there was, no room existed for that, and obviously it does now. So, I think we're going to see that for things like kombucha and cold-pressed juice, kind of on a more broad scale than we are right now. So.
Yeah. Speaking of coconut water, always going to see a lot of coconut water brands here at the show. A couple more HPP brands that we saw, Copra, Envo, the British brand, Unoko was here as well. At the same time, we're seeing a lot of these new brands sort of position themselves as a kind of coconut water type product.
Sure.
But they call it something else. They'll call it maple water, barley water. Is that the right positioning for these new brands?
I don't think so. I mean, it's never really worked out where brands have chased the wave of some other, category or brand. I mean, vitamin water probably being the case that we've talked about the most on BevNet, where, we're looking, a lot of brands were trying to be the next vitamin water, and it just never happened.
Right.
I mean, coconut water kind of turned out to be the next vitamin water. So point being that, these brands are sort of chasing coconut water now, and I think they're sort of failing to figure out what the identity for their own product or category might be, and that's something that's just going to limit where they can go, especially since all of those products that you mentioned, when you look at the nutrition label, which is what consumers are going to do, most of them don't stack up in terms of electrolytes, and it's just not clear what they are. Doesn't mean any of those products are bad. They just, again, need to figure out what it is they are going to be. And I think, some of those products, I mean, we tasted a lot of sort of, unique things, artichoke water, maple olive water.
Yeah.
And, some of these things, I think, just from a refreshment point of view, are definitely marketable. Maybe not in their current forms, but, I think there's some stuff there. We're, again, very much in the infancy of all of those, though. So.
Well, they have to define some sort of functional benefit. I mean, it sounds like. I mean, it can't just be refreshment anymore. Last off, we saw some really, really interesting new products and brands come out. I know one of your favorites was camel milk. Well, maybe not favorites.
I don't know my favorite. Yeah. That was, camel milk is one of those things. It's like as many products as you see at these shows where you wonder, where did somebody come up with that, or will this fly? I mean, that was pretty interesting, especially $18 a bottle.
It's a big, it's a costly bowl of cereal for sure.
For sure.
Yeah. Watermelon water was another one of these brands that was talked about quite a bit at the show. Good stuff, really good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's always good when you have people at a show saying, "Hey, have you tried
Sure.
whatever?" And this time, watermelon water was certainly one of those. Which, look, it's really simple to understand too, which is great.
Yeah.
Big hurdle for a lot of brands is just explaining what the heck it is and what it does.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. Also, a lot of new protein drinks on the market, but we saw the plant-based protein drink Botan, which had a nice revamp as well.
Yeah, I mean, vegan, plant-based protein, I think, is one of those things. Definitely see that as an opportunity. It's still, challenging sort of flavor profile, but I think those guys have, done a nice job. Yeah,
definitely. All right, well, that's all the time we have for right now. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for much more coverage of the Natural Products Expo West 2014 show in the coming weeks. Thanks again for watching.